Part 2. The jump into the Antalos system was run-of-the-mill, but immediately Captain Ryn felt on edge. Even just being in a system with such a bad reputation would risk smearing her efforts. She tapped her finger against the tablet on her desk, looking up the various items pinned and taped onto the wall of her cabin. Some of them were from her own life and adventures, but many were much older. They were artifacts from an age when scientific exploration was a consideration beyond just a cudgel in war. At least, that's what she wanted to believe. No, it was something she needed to believe. Before she dealt with anything on Antalos, Ryn would have to make sure the rabbit's foot was in good hands. She walked down the gunmetal gray steel hallway to the ready room where the Mechwarriors and aerojocks were waiting. Their banter died down as she stepped up to the aluminum conference table. First of all, you're all staying here. The last thing I need is one of my Mechwarriors picking a fight in a bar and ending up too busted to work or in traction for 6 months, Ryn said with a slightly more authoritative tone than she usually needed. Akif Furrow, Mechwarrior of the Calliope, piped up while spinning an empty mug on its edge. "Ah, Captain, don't you have any faith in my right hook?" "None at all. You four are staying here to back up Lieutenant Levitt and the Holtz in their aerofighters. The last thing we need is for an opportunist to seize our jump ship while the Acre is under repair over Antalos," Ryn explained. "What about you?" asked Kip Holt, the gruff and grizzled aerospace pilot leaning against the bulkhead next to his daughter Ariana, the ship's other aerospace pilot. "Won't the Acre need some backup?" Ryn nodded at the question before responding. "I'm hoping we can keep a low profile. The Acre is a run-of-the-mill dropship, and I'd like anyone who looks at it to assume it's not worth bothering. An aerospace fighter flying backup is a big neon sign asking for attention. I'll take the skeleton dropship crew and some techs to help with the repairs. Maybe that can shave a few C-bills off the repair." Everyone nodded except for Tenica Denton, who leaned back in her chair and looked concerned. "Have something, Ten?" Ryn asked of her Mechwarrior. "I would feel much better if you had at least one mech in the hold, and someone to watch your back," Tenica said, while gently tapping her finger on the table. "Well, we wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable." "Fine, you're with me. At least I can trust you to stay out of trouble," Ryn said. "Move your Zeus to the Acre as soon as possible." "Akif and May," Ryn turned to look at the Mechwarriors on the other side of the table. "Since you're moving your Calliope and Commando anyway, you have first watch. A few mechs standing on the rabbit's foot should let anyone at the jump point know we're not easy pickings." "Aye, Captain," they said together. When Ryn reached the bridge, Lieutenant Levitt was there waiting for her. He handed over the tablet with the expected repair goods as well as the bid to help with negotiations. She scanned it before stuffing it back into the rucksack she had grabbed from her cabin on the way. "We'll keep things from falling apart up here if you can keep from slipping into a life of crime and debauchery down there," Levitt said with his trademark smile. "Oh, you know me. Life of the party," Ryn said in her usual dry tone. "If all goes well, we won't have to go planetside. The station in orbit should have the repair facilities we need, and I don't think the Acre could handle a surface landing anyway," Ryn added. "Keep an eye out. If anyone gets too nosy or asks what we're up to, let them know we're on official Combine business. That should keep most of the riffraff at bay." "Just make sure you come back. You might be the only one here who really believes in this Explorer Corps stuff," Levitt said with a smile. Ryn turned and offered up a weak smile before replying, "I don't know how you managed to become both an optimist and a pessimist at the same time." "It's all part of my charm, Captain," Levitt responded with a salute. Captain Ryn and Tenica walked through the opening airlock door, looking like they were there for business. Ryn wore her light gray captain's tunic and navy blue flight pants. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight single braid and stowed under her light gray cap. Tenica, in her usual style, was wearing a navy blue jumpsuit, opening down the front to show the coolant vest underneath. The right arm of the jumpsuit was rolled up to show off the faint blue glow of the tribal eagle inked across her forearm. It was all very deliberate, as both Ryn and Tenica sought to look like people you wouldn't necessarily want to mess with. To some extent it was true, as Ryn knew Tenica had been through more than her fair share of scraps, though Ryn was a scientist, not a warrior. In fact, she had only ever ordered a ship to fire on a single occasion, and that was to scare off some pirates more than a decade ago. The dropship was locked down, for now, at one of the 4 repair gantries that surrounded the floating space station in orbit over Antalos. Though, to be fair, calling it a space station doesn't really do the massive structure justice. Or maybe it does too much justice. The structure consisted of several defunct jump ships seemingly welded together around the original repair and construction naval yard. It was all vaguely menacing, and things didn't improve as the two explorers walked into the bridge of one of the jump ships. The bridge had been converted into what looked like half an office and half a bar, with junkers, techs, and various other characters scattered around socializing. No one seemed to be in a hurry to recognize Ryn or Tenica. Ryn scanned the room and picked out the guy who looked like he was in charge, largely because he had his hand around an underling's arm and was physically twisting it as the victim cringed. Ryn and Tenica walked up to him, and his attention turned to them. He looked vaguely interested as Ryn introduced herself. "I'm Captain Ryn Barrett of the New Explorer Corps. We're getting some repairs done on the dropship, and you look like the person we should talk to in order to replace some gear." Ryn spoke with firmness, but tempered it to avoid sounding arrogant. The last thing she wanted was for this traitor to think that she thought she was too good for this establishment. The rather heavy-set man leaned back in his chair, rubbed the stubble on his chin, and smiled before responding. "Well, I don't know if I'm the guy you should talk to, but I'm a guy you can talk to. What gear do you need?" Ryn handed over the tablet, and the man looked at it, scanned over the list before responding. "We can cover for most of this, though it's going to be a bit pricey. We're far from your closest depot. My name is Rhys. You're on my ship, and you're welcome to stay as long as you need." The way he smiled and looked up at Tenica like she was on the menu made both of the explorers stand up a little straighter. Seeking to diffuse things, Ryn turned to Tenica and suggested that she go get some drinks. The Mechwarrior furrowed her dark-haired brow before turning and walking off to seek that drink. "You have a nice jump ship at that nadir point. Your dropship's crap, though. I suspect that's deliberate," Rhys said, handing the tablet off to the tech, who scanned it before handing it back to Ryn. "We are on a scientific mission, non-military, though we can defend ourselves," Ryn said, offering as little information as she could. Rhys chuckled and nodded. "I'm sure you can. Tell you what, why don't you and your partner stick around and enjoy what the station has to offer? We can take some good care of your dropship and let get you on your way." Ryn nodded. "We'll stay on our ship, for the safety of your crew and ours." Rhys turned his head slightly, and his smile grew even larger. In a half-statement, half-laugh, he responded, "Looks like that's true." Ryn turned to see Tenica and a somewhat dangerous-looking tech in greasy overalls squaring up for a fistfight, or at least it looked like a fistfight, until Ryn saw the tech reach back to slide a blade from his back pocket, holding it out of Tenica's view. Ryn moved quickly toward the fight, but not before the blade slashed across the air and nicked Tenica on the forearm. She winced, but did not retreat. Just a few meters away now, Ryn saw the tech prepare for another swing when the motion was interrupted by the tech being lifted several feet up into the air. In the fray, Ryn hadn't noticed the huge person walk up and grip the tech by the neck. Of course, it's impossible not to identify a clan elemental on sight. They dwarf the standard human by a significant margin, and the one that was currently gripping that struggling tech around his neck was covered in the telltale signs of elemental battle armor enhancements. The massive warrior squeezed, and the tech dropped the knife to the metal floor. Only then did the elemental release his grip and drop the man to the deck. Tenica stood, quite in awe, looking up at the clan warrior as if he wasn't quite real. The tech grabbed his knife and scrambled out of the room. With the action over, the people went back to drinking and socializing. Tenica dropped her fighting stance and looked up at the warrior who, in turn, looked down at her like she was a half-completed puzzle. "I could have handled him. I didn't need help," Tenica said as Ryn finally reached her side. "Of that I know there is no doubt," said the warrior in a tone so bass that Ryn felt like her bones rattled. "However, everyone needs help sometimes. That is no failing or indicative of a loss of honor." "If you say so," Tenica said as she grabbed a towel from the bar and held it over the cut on her arm. The elemental turned his head enough to look down at Ryn, sizing her up as Ryn gawked up at him. She looked at his chiseled features and the slightly glowing green inked design up his arms, chest, and neck. "If you don't mind me asking, to what clan are you sourced?" Ryn said with some trepidation. The elemental seemed to ponder the question for quite some time before responding. He took a deep breath and said, "I do not mind the question, though I would have started by asking my name." "Oh, sorry, you just caught me a little off guard," Ryn said. What's your name?" The elemental nodded with a slight smile before responding. "I have a tendency to do that. My name is Vasile. I was, of Clan Jade Falcon." Tenica piped up, pulling the rag away from the cut on her arm. I thought all the falcons bedded on Terra. Vasil looked back towards Tenica, and again, after a lengthy pause, he responded, "Not all of them." "Can I buy you a drink?" Ryn asked, hoping to find out more about why this Jade Falcon was out here, so far from, well, everything. "Yes, I would like that," Vasil said, still looking at Tenica with a slightly puzzled and amused gaze. End Part 2. If you're enjoying this story and want to support its creation, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and even share the story with others. The positive comments and feedback have been amazing, and I'm energized to continue with this series. If you are new to the channel, check out this and other stories on the main page, along with painting tutorials and other Battletech nonsense. Now take care, and I will see you next time. Go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.